Big piece of what we're doing is actually explaining the range of careers in construction that you and I know about, but they don't know about. So they imagine everybody in construction has to go out on a wet day and has to stand in the ditch in the pouring rain for hours. And yeah, those are important jobs, and we need more people to do those jobs. And some people love those jobs, and some people will never want those jobs. But we have so many careers in construction, literally hundreds of careers in construction that are not understood. So it's about setting out the range of those. We are going to be producing a single prospectus for Northern Ireland for construction, which will cover every entry point into construction, be that straight from school, be that from university, be that from college, be that as a life experienced person returning to the workforce, and where you can get trained on the various skills that you need to get to where you want to go. So it's a big piece of work. But what we want is a single touch point where a young person, a careers teacher, or a parent can go and actually understand construction, that it's a path, it's a journey. It's not a single job, it's a journey. A lot of people don't end up where they started, but the opportunities are great.
Hello everybody, Gavin Coyle. I'm the Gaffer back again, and I have a fantastic guest today who's a champion in the construction industry space in the island of Ireland, but also in particular in Northern Ireland, where he is the CEO of the CEF, which is a body that represents the construction industry. And I'm delighted to have him on with ourselves today because I've had a few conversations and I know the challenges that this man has. And, you know, through his leadership and his background, I'm sure they're in good, safe hands for the future. But he does have major challenges, which he's going to share with us, and which I believe that you, the listener or the viewer, will resonate regardless of which country you're in, because the construction industry seems to have a team of challenges no matter where you go that are pretty much the same. Some might be more than others, but you know, that's going to be the part of the discussion today, and how we can sort of bite-size that down into manageable outputs, and that can make a difference within the construction industry. And we need leaders like Mark Spence, who we have here today. So Mark, welcome to the show. We're delighted to have you.
Thanks, Gavin. Delighted to be on. I've enjoyed listening to some of your other podcasts, so it's great to be on the receiving end for a change.
Brilliant. A lot to cover in such a short space of time. So I'd love to get under the bonnet and find out how the person like yourself manages to get into a fairly prestigious job as a CEO of a very influential body. So maybe give us a bit of background about yourself, and then give us a bit of background about the body that you represent and your role within that body.
Thanks, Gavin. Yeah, let me take that in reverse order so we don't lose your listeners. So the CEF rather than me, because that's much more important. So yeah, we're actually entering in this year, 2024. This is the 80th year of CEF in Northern Ireland. As you say, we're the representative body. So we represent about 70% of construction activity in Northern Ireland. We reckon that's around about 30,000 direct employees and about 65,000 in the wider ecosystem of construction. So we are the certified body. That strangely gives us a similar status to a trades union. So we're essentially the trades union for construction in Northern Ireland. And given that role, we are a consultee for government on all related policy matters. So we do spend a significant amount of our energy engaging with our elected representatives when we have them in Northern Ireland. You'll understand that caveat very well. So that's a significant component of what we do. But really our urge is to represent not just the large contractors, because it's too easy just to say we're there to engage with government. And, you know, a lot of the folks listening to this podcast don't work directly for government, don't want to work for government, work privately, do their own things. So the other aspects of our business are looking after health and safety, and we've introduced safety schemes in the past, Safety Cert, which is a certification scheme for the industry. Yeah. And EnviroCert, an environmental certification scheme, and trying to make those things scalable and relevant to construction, try and make them affordable as well for smaller contractors. So we have a significant role, as you say. We have influence with government. That's a large part of what we do. But we're much more interested, I think, in the future of construction than constantly being in battles with government, because government have their own issues, and we're trying to work well with them. And I think we're in a good space with them these days. We'll maybe get on and talk later in the podcast about the future of construction and the work that we're doing on the skills agenda as well. And we're taking ownership of that now. Yeah. My own background and how I got to here strangely or not, I'm an accountant by background and training. So I'm a chartered accountant, started my life in that space. Found my way into one of the global accountancy practices, got diverted into consultancy, started working on the old PFI and PPP projects back in the late 90s and early noughties, which really piqued my construction interest. Otherwise, I'm an accountant. I actually would have liked to have been an architect, but at my interview for university for the architectural school, they very quickly pointed out that I have zero artistic ability and thought I'd probably be pretty miserable in that role and frustrated.
Were they that blunt? Were they that blunt?
They were literally that blunt. Apparently every building can't be drawn with a ruler, so that's the end of that. So yes, I've always had the construction interest. I found my way into it by other means. So yes, accountancy into the consultancy, PFI, PPP, did a lot of work both with the government there in Dublin as well as across the UK, travelling with PwC at the time. Then joined Mazars in Dublin, again working on the PFI, PPP agenda. That took a bit of a downturn. You'll remember in the 2009, 10, 11, things got a little bit tricky there. So that at that time, that wasn't a space to be in. Returned to the north, worked for a main contractor up here in the north in terms of being their bid development director, because I knew a lot of the public sector clients at this point. Knew what they were looking for, had spent a large part of my career actually devising and conducting the procurement processes and evaluation. So I knew how to win bids, win work. So working with that main contractor here in Belfast, and then this opportunity presented itself back in 2019.
Well done.
Was appointed in 2020, and I have to say, love the role. It's a very diverse role. Every day is a different day. And yes, there's challenges, but challenges without solution are no fun. But when you can actually find some movement or some solution or some easement, you get a great sense of satisfaction out of it. And it's a constant battle. You can't rest in your laurels.
And you can't keep everybody happy all the time.
Absolutely. If you do that one, you'll go far.
You have to put your Kofi Annan hat on now and again,
I've been described as Kofi Annan more than once.
Brilliant. So in terms of the amount of people that will be in your organisation, what size of an organisation is it in terms of...
Okay. So listen, I think people might be surprised. We're a very slim organisation. We have about a dozen staff.
Okay.
3 or 4 of those staff are in our policy space, where we are more visible, and that's where we engage. We obviously have admin staff, and then we have staff who are focused entirely on the skills agenda and the health and safety agenda, which are 2 of the main planks of what CEF is about. So we're fairly tight, slim organisation. I think we deliver a lot of bang for our buck at the scale that we are. But what I will say is we rely a lot on the good auspices of our members. We have a number of very well supported committees. I have a very dedicated board who support me in what I do. We have our Federation Council, which is an amalgam of all of the diverse range of businesses who are members of CEF. So without our members, we are nothing, and literally they support us in everything we do and steer us in terms of the actions that we need to take. So yes, the executive is quite light, but yes, we rely a lot on our members' input.
What about succession? In terms of one CEO over to another CEO, not to sort of throw the last CEO under the bus by any means.
Not at all. No. Listen, it's interesting because, as I say, we're into our 80th year as CEF. I'm the 5th CEO in that time.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my God.
There's only 4 have gone before me, so each of those has been a legend in their own lifetime. So I walk big footprints.
I'm just thinking you won't need a hall for those pictures.
As you say, if you visit our offices here, we have a very fine gallery of all our presidents, of whom we have about 25 over those years, but we have only 4 predecessors to myself. So I'm very humbled by that, and I'll not be around as long as any of them are around, I can assure you. But yes, I suppose everybody brings their own touch to it, and their own flavour.
There has to be an overall blueprint, though, doesn't there? There has to be some sort of like a gap analysis strategy that's a live working document framework for the next person. I'm not telling you how to, sit in the position. I'm sure that there was a clear handover, but How much leeway do you get to put your own take on where you want to go? That's probably where I'm going with this.
Yes. Okay. So I'm very fortunate. So I'm steered by our board, which is half a dozen of our members. So we have our president, previous president, and vice upcoming president, and then we have treasurer and 2 council members. So we're very well supported by that board. And to be fair, we've done quite a lot of change in this organisation in the last 5 years. In the next 5 years, there'll be more change. Inevitably, things move on. I mean, if you imagine one of the first things I had to do in role was deal with COVID. You're straight into a pandemic and you discover you're in a building that barely has broadband and nobody has laptops except 1 or 2 people. You certainly have never used Teams. You didn't know what Zoom was until this all happened. And suddenly you're having to conduct business with government who are all at home. So, radical changes there in terms of the modernization of the business. It's not to say we were a paper-based business, but we, to some degree, were. So we've gone through a full digitized strategy. All of our online membership now is fully online, so we don't issue paper to members. They get their certificates sent out to them electronically. You apply electronically. Everything's done through portals. All the members get their papers for committee meetings online.
Brilliant.
It just controls things much better. We can measure their engagement with us because they book their tickets for events and dinners and things online, and we can tell if they've read their emails or they don't read their emails, so we can change the scope of those and try and make it more relevant. We also had to come up with a lot more engagement. People don't have time to come for these lovely leisurely business lunches that we used to do, or
100%
call into the office on a Friday afternoon for a few hours. No, it's a 1 hour webinar online, which goes down very well. But you're starting to realize people's time is precious. People don't give it up easily, and I find that particularly in construction, time is money. And equally, senior management like to see what's going on. They're busy. They're on their sites. They're not all sitting in the head office all day in the heat. A lot of them will be on the site watching what's happening. So we have to give them value for their time. And even committee meetings, we find increasingly, yes, we do use remote access for those. It has its ups and it has its downs. You can lose a bit of engagement, but what we then do is say, right, we have quarterly meetings. Let's take 3 of those on the road during the year. They're not all going to be in the head office in Belfast. We'll come to you. We'll come to your offices. We'll come to Fermanagh. We'll go up to Derry. We'll do whatever we need to do just so we're always accessible. I think in the past, and I think most business organizations have been guilty of this, is a bit of mountains and Mohammed. You come to it. I'm sorry, it's a members organization. We should be going to the members more often. Equally, getting out on site, again, not something we were probably well known for doing, but now at least once a week, myself and one of my colleagues will be out visiting members on a Friday, typically.
Wow, once a week?
Yeah, we try to do that once a week because that's where you hear the true stories.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
I learned so much because I'm not a contractor and I'm not from a technical construction background. I understand the business primarily from a commercial and financial focus. But to actually get on the ground, see some of the young faces, fabulous. See, truthfully, more older faces on site. It's one of the few times I feel young sometimes when I go on site and look at who's around me. It's hearing those real, true day-to-day stories where the pressure points are.
100%.
Where's the good news? There's sometimes good news on sites as well, and a bit of uplift. So I think that's important. I don't think I could do my job unless I'm doing that. I can't do my job sitting in a nice, comfy office in the Malone Road in Belfast. I have to go out and see what's going on. And sometimes you'll hear things and you think, God, is it that bad? And it gives you a thought, and you think, right, we need to do something about that. So that's when you get the feedback.
One of the things that got me from our discovery call when I spoke with you was obviously the fact that you're very inclusive in your vision for where you're at, because you're not just, focusing in on the tier ones. And I kind of felt, in my opinion, there was probably too much of a lean on tier ones down through the years where the voice of the SME body wasn't really being heard as much as the tier one. And a major kudos to you for that. Maybe you could speak about that a little bit as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, yes, okay, we're very fortunate to have some very large members, and some of those are working in England and globally, and yes, they've got billion dollar turnovers, and they're very supportive members. But actually, the core of our membership is that SME business, family business, could be second generation business, but they're the core of what we do. They are the feet on the ground locally. So if we're not representing them, we're doing a poor job. So it's vital to us. And, I'm always mindful, particularly with things like the health and safety message or the skills messages. Those don't trickle down the supply chain very far.
Yeah.
So we actually have to go out there and try and disseminate that. And we do try to reach out. And as I always say, if you're a CEF member, you will get full access to everything. But it's not to be exclusive to the industry. If there's a benefit in doing it for the wider industry, we'll do it for the wider industry. And I don't care if you're a member or not, we'll help you.
Yeah.
We're there to help the industry. What I do constantly remind myself is that our tier ones rely on the SMEs. The tier ones tend to be management businesses these days.
100%. 100%.
They're professionally led and they're super businesses, but they don't put feet on the ground.
Yeah. The conveyor belt seems to be the SME and the project management seems to be the tier one. And there's nothing wrong with that. It seems to be working, apart from the fact that everybody's struggling for labour at the moment, as
That's
you know.
Yeah, the pinch is in the middle. The pinch is in the middle, without a doubt. And that's where we have the skills issue, because that tier below are reluctant to take on apprentices and young people or people converting their careers because they're not sure where the next job's coming from necessarily. They maybe don't have an HR department, they don't have a training manager, so they maybe don't feel equipped to do it. And we need to be able to support those people to do that. I think we also need to have a very grown-up conversation, and we're starting to have that conversation with the tier ones about supporting their supply chain to take on those people.
Yeah.
They've done it to date largely because of the social clauses that apply to contracts, public sector contracts in the north, where you have to take on a certain number of apprentices or young people or long-term unemployed. That tends to get rolled off down the hill to the SME and the subcontractors. And some of them are good at it, some of them don't feel able to do it. We're saying now it's really the main contractors. You need to step up.
Yeah.
You wanted the contract. You wanted to deliver it. Some of that responsibility has to be shouldered by you. And, honestly, a lot of them are happy to step up to that now because the number of subcontractors we have out there is dwindling. Their interest is dwindling, and certainly in public sector contracts. So if we want to keep them engaged, we have to wrap around and give them the support we can.
Yeah, here to that. And again, it's not exclusive to Northern Ireland. It's across the globe where that problem is.
To be honest, I mean, that's something, maybe that's why I sleep okay at night, is because I realize these problems are not unique. And I'm very fortunate. I'm an advisor on the CLC in London. I represent Northern Ireland there. We have a devolved nations subgroup, and we all share the same issues, Scotland, Wales, England, Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
We engage closely with CIF in Dublin as well. I know the issues are not so different. Paul and I compare notes and we have the same issues. So the issues are commonplace. Does that help us? No, it probably means, it's slightly worse because we're fighting over skills. And I think increasingly skills have become a very mobile commodity. People are very prepared to travel these days. Mm-hmm. Good work, good rates of pay, good benefits and conditions. So, strictly speaking, we're competitors on this island. We're competitors across these islands. But what that tells me is we just need to do what we do better and look after our people better, and then we will retain them. Yeah.
And do you have a sense? Do you have a sense, Mark? Because I have a sense in Northern Ireland that the employment of labour is different than the UK mainland, in the sense that UK mainland would generally lean towards transient agency type labour as opposed to direct labour. And I feel Northern Ireland wasn't really like that, didn't follow that model.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, particularly if you're in that space of reactive maintenance, for example, you will find that is a heavy direct labour environment because you're asking people to respond at short notice, and you've got very strict KPIs in your contracts that you don't want to fall foul of, so you need your people under your own control. But in terms of the larger construction, I think it is a contracting business now. Certainly the bigger names here are all management contractors with very few actual feet on the ground. Yeah. But equally, those are the companies then who find it easier to travel to London, to Liverpool, to Glasgow, wherever the work is, because they're a management company. They're fairly fleet of foot. They can travel, and they're not relying on those foot soldiers, if you like, but they are actually bringing subcontractors with them a lot of the time. I'm surprised by that. Some of the big names from the north have been working in London for 10 years or more. I thought by this point they may be using local London subbies, and some of them will do, but actually a lot of them have remained very faithful to their Northern Ireland supply chain, who continue to travel in both journeys. So there's, why are they doing that? It's got to be economic. It's got to be satisfaction. It's got to be the way they've been treated.
Yeah.
Relationships work and they're reliable.
Yeah.
I was on site before Christmas on a very nice job in Kensington, and the local London-based subcontractor had disappeared, gone pop, at zero notice, and they brought somebody back from the north, and they said, right, that's probably the model we're going to go with. Then you know who you're dealing with. You don't know who you're dealing with in London, so if the risk is about delivery and timescales, then the cost of somebody travelling is probably worked within that and can still be done. But it is a relationships business, and the relationships have been very good between main contractors and subcontractors here. And again, mentioning the dreaded COVID word, I think during that period, it was truly appreciated that big contractors did look after their supply chains at a difficult time.
Yeah, and people were able to maintain a lifestyle and pay their mortgages and to some extent have a future.
Yes.
Which is, if you look at the hospitality sector, they got decimated, obviously.
Absolutely. And again, very fortunate the influence we have with government here. We were able to get government support very early on, and we reckon last time we asked our members for figures, we reckon 50 to 60 million put back into contractors in the north through a mechanism we agreed with the Department of Finance about material cost.
Wow.
Fluctuations arising from COVID. Those are the things which, when you work collectively, you can do, which you would never do as a standalone entity. So I suppose that's the strength of membership, where you're all speaking with one voice.
I'm interested to see where you feel the standard of construction is, and I probably know what your answer is going to be, but from 10 years ago to where we are now, I think it's fair to say the standards have gone through the roof in terms of the product delivery. The brands that are delivering really top class projects on time, on budget, mostly. But yet there's still people that are getting decimated by not being paid. So where does the standard come in terms of payment? And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we had a workshop before Christmas with local government here in the north around prompt payment, and it was interesting. I was going to that fully armed with my usual arguments that we're not so worried about the payments through the supply chain, although that's important. We're worried that government doesn't pay the main contractor on time. And actually, when we got into the meeting, we discovered that indeed was their agenda too. They realised they don't pay the main contractor on time.
Okay.
And then that ripples right the way through.
Yeah.
Now, there's an argument to say the main contractor knows this because you've been complaining about it for 10 years. Therefore, it's a built-in assumption. It's baked into your price and your risk, and you know that, and you carry the cost and you finance it. And that's true, and that's all fine. And actually, does it matter if you're a month late getting paid this time? Because you'll always be a month late. So actually, it's only that first month that opens up the gap. Every month after that, you're paid at even intervals, and it's all fine. But it's not really fine. There's a piece of work done up here which showed that actually central government is one of the worst at paying their invoices on time. The main point I raised as well was paying an invoice. Yeah, that's the easy piece.
Yeah,
it's getting to the point of agreeing what the invoice amount is, and
that's a different story.
That's a different story. That can be as long as a piece of yarn. I mean, that goes on for months and many, many occasions. So there's a piece of work to be done there, but there is a reform of prompt payment coming, which will actually tighten up public sector payments, which will be a bit like the NEC contract in the sense of if you snooze, you lose. So if you can't come to an agreement within a period of time, then the default is you pay the man.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah.
That will allow main contractors then to make the same agreements with their supply chains.
Yes.
In my experience, I think things are better than they were certainly before COVID. I know before COVID there were issues. During COVID, I think genuinely most contractors wrapped around their supply chain to keep them going. And COVID, yes, no doubt there's been a bit of a deterioration in that. But equally, what I hear is that to keep your supply chain, which is vital to you, you're having to pay them. And anecdotally, I hear people being paid ahead of time, having their materials bought for them, various things being done, trying to support them. So I suppose it's like everything else. There's good practice and there's bad practice. And, when we're talking to elected representatives, they'll be talking to us about their meal bag, where no doubt they get letters saying, I haven't been paid by that big contractor down the road and it's disgraceful. It is disgraceful. Yeah, I'm not going to support that for a minute.
Yeah.
If people have done the work and the work to the right standard, they should be paid on the terms that you've agreed with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's going to be much more scrutiny of that through legislation. That'll be a burden on the public sector, which we're all a little bit nervous of. I think the public sector are a bit nervous of that. They're strapped for resource already. That's one of our concerns, is they're so strapped for resource they can't agree the payments.
Yeah.
So actually asking them to add on a monitoring role to that is probably dubious, but the intention is good. I think if we can get prompt payments from the point at which the work is completed, that the invoice amount is agreed, then the invoice will get paid in time. Everybody gets paid on time, and the merry-go-round should be a lot happier.
And is there anything in your framework for the members that they, a charter or something, a policy within the membership that's, if you're dealing with a member, that these are the standards that we expect you to
yeah, I mean, our members are held to a code of practice, which is, they should follow all relevant good practice and guidance at the time, which will be guidance that inevitably we're consulted on.
Yeah,
I'll be shared with members as it's updated as we go along, and also anybody who's in any disrepute, obviously, or any illegal dispute. Then, unfortunately, members occasionally do have to be suspended pending outcomes of that, but that is rare.
No. I get you, but it's. I think it might take a turn because of the fact that the lack of labour in the market, as you kind of indicated earlier on, means that if you don't look after these people, they're going to go up the road, and you're going to lose them.
That's it. That's exactly the message we're getting.
Yeah.
And you can see that. I mean, I'm surprised sometimes you go onto building sites and there's so few personnel on that site.
Yeah.
It's surprising. Yeah. You always imagine that a building site's going to be a hive of activity and hundreds of people, and
it's quiet.
So often it's not the case. Yeah, it's really quiet. And then you realise that, subcontractor didn't come in today, or he's finishing off another job and we've got to wait for him. But you will wait for him because he's a reliable guy. He's just not there today. But you're not going to start the whole process of looking for somebody else.
Yeah.
So yes, there's an amount of leverage there with the subcontractors, which I'm sure they know how to use. How to use
it. And another very interesting topic for you that you have to deal with as a challenge from when I spoke to you originally was the lack of infrastructure to keep up with the demand for productivity. That's massive. Like I don't know, with all due respect, 5 CEOs in 80 years. It could be another 5 CEOs in 80 years.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, God, you want to count the number of ministers we've had in the Northern Ireland Executive who've not dealt with any of these issues either. I mean, it's staggering. So, infrastructure is the biggest issue we've had. And certainly in 2024, it was our main platform issue, which we led on. But it's not a new topic. Yeah. I mean, CEF have been talking about the lack of water investment in this place for 10, 15 years or more. Back through the records, but it has got acute. So when we were talking to NI Water at the start of this year and started doing a survey of our own members around house building in particular, and we asked, how many houses would you be building today, but you can't because you can't get the connections. And our members came back and gave us a figure of, about 8,500, something like that. And we thought that's a substantial number of homes for a place like Northern Ireland. And we went to Northern Ireland Water and asked them about it, and they actually have better data than us. They came back and said, it's actually about 19,000. These are figures which later in the year, despite Northern Ireland Water being a shareholder-owned business owned by the Department for Infrastructure, whose minister subsequently then denied those figures and said he'd never seen them, didn't know where they came from. But unfortunately, there was a bit of banter on local media about those figures, but that's the fact of the matter is we cannot build the homes that we are in a position to build. Our developers have bought the land, they've secured the planning. People need those houses. We have 55,000 people on the housing waiting list here.
Oh my God.
30,000 of those are acute housing need, which is desperate stuff. So that's people living in hostels or sofa surfing and all the rest. So we absolutely need the houses. We need social homes. We work very closely with the Federation of Housing Associations here in the north, who are on the same page as us. They want to be building about 2,500 social homes a year here just to start eating into the backlog. They're only a matter of a few hundred this year.
Yeah, you're only scratching the surface. You're not even...
Yeah, I mean, we have a housing strategy which we assisted the Communities Minister in launching in December, which has a target of an aspiration, if you like, of 100,000 homes in 15 years. But at the minute, we're building about 4,000 a year, and that figure's going down.
Yeah.
That's going down because the connections are getting less and less each year. So we absolutely need a huge investment in water. Water is a state-owned utility. Here in the north, we do not have domestic water rates. We have commercial water rates. That's been there for a long time. What we've been asking for is a fundamental review of how it's funded, because there are no borrowing powers being used there, which could be used if it was mutualised, or turned into some form of corporate state-owned business, which can borrow. But at the moment, because it's on the government balance sheet, they can't borrow beyond their existing envelope, which is very limiting. They need to borrow about £600 million a year to meet what the utility regulator has suggested is their investment requirement. And this year they did 300 million.
Wow.
So they're only investing half what they need to do. That half is being spent purely on maintenance. It's not increasing the capacity of the networks. So houses that are in the system and approved for planning may go ahead. But if you're a developer at the minute, you're not buying new land. Our friends in planning consultancies tell us they've had no new inquiries for most of last year. So there's a real gap coming.
That's what was in my head when you were talking. I was thinking to myself, if I'm a developer, I'm not building in Northern Ireland, because I'm going to go elsewhere where I know I can, get the show on the road.
There's all these inhibitors. And, when you look beyond housing and even developers, one of the big thrusts for Northern Ireland is this slightly unique status we have between the EU and the UK. And this is meant to be a platform for investment, particularly from the States. And our other government minister, the economy minister, has, talked very positively about all the opportunities there. But even he has recognised himself in his own constituency there are a couple of factories which can't be built because of the lack of water. We know of an instance of one factory which was destined for Newry, which would have been a £25 million capital investment, and all the jobs that come with that. It's going to Ashbourne in Dublin because you can connect it and we can't connect it. We know of another factory up in Ballymena, much the same. It would have created 2,000 jobs. Those jobs are going to Poland, again, because the foreign direct investment couldn't be made because we don't have the infrastructure. So if Northern Ireland wants to present itself as a serious destination for business, we need to get serious about our infrastructure. And that's not to talk down the economy, because we have a great many positives here in the north, but we're doing a disservice to ourselves if we turn a blind eye to the problems, and we need to start dealing with them.
Yeah, that's pretty grim, Mark. I wasn't expecting a grim conversation with you.
Well, I can do grim. I don't tell the agents, but I can do grim. We're trying to find an upside to a lack of infrastructure. I haven't found the joke yet. I just don't know what it is. The only thing I'll say is we used to worry about planning, and now we worry about water, and then we worry about planning. It's prioritization. Water has just become the biggest issue. It is the biggest issue in the north, and it's holding everything back. It's starting to hold back schools. So we're starting to have issues where schools want to expand because they need to build a sensory classroom, for example.
Yeah.
And because you may need extra wash hand basins or something in that classroom, the answer is no. Because that's extra capacity and you can't do it.
Wow.
So, we talk about it. It's very, very important to us in the construction industry. It's important to house builders. Does it matter to the person on the street? Probably not, until they can't buy a home that they want in an area they want it, or until their child can't go to a school they want because there's no capacity, or the hospital can't build a new renal dialysis unit. It's that impact. It's the ripples which will impact in people's lives, and they won't even realise why that's a ripple. Yeah. They won't understand the fundamental cause. It's quite hard for us to beat the drum on an issue like wastewater, because truthfully, most people don't really like talking about sewage and stuff. It's hard to make it relevant to people's lives, but we've tried this year. I think it's landed. The sheer number of questions being asked about it now gives us some hope that actually this is piqued a bit of interest. Yeah, infrastructure is interesting. Infrastructure is an interesting topic. I mean, I heard this morning that the discussions between your parties to form a new government, they're looking at essentially winding back the green agenda slightly and looking at a road building program.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When did we last build a road of any significance in the north? We can't even build the roads which have been in planning for 10 years and they're still held up. And now we don't have the money to do them, even if, it goes on and on. So we need to get very serious about infrastructure. We're falling so far behind. Yeah. Not only the larger part of this island, but in general amongst these islands, that, we're in real jeopardy here if we don't get serious about investing in infrastructure, that we're going to become a backwater, when actually we should be that bridge between the two. We should be a really popular place to be. We're at capacity. That's nearly the truth. We're at capacity at the moment until we start to investigate other avenues.
You know, like my company, the company I have, would deal a lot with ESB in the south, and like the brand reputation of NIE is up there, like way up there. On par, you could make that. Well, I can make that opinion. Some people might have a different opinion, but the standard of work.
I think we're very fortunate with the utilities that we have in the north.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
The problem we have with all of them is capacity. Now, NIE are in a different space, and NIE have got plans and they have funding in place, and they will be rolling out investment, and that is very much needed. But they can do it. They'll do it over a period of time. NI Water is state-owned.
Yeah.
And the mentality we have at the moment is that therefore it has to live within its means. And our approach to this is don't accept what you've got. There's other avenues, there's other things we can do. At the very least, explore them. We don't even seem to wish to do that in government at the moment. We seem to be content with our lot. And that, to me, that's unacceptable.
It's a missed opportunity as well. The more you think about it, is because you can see the flexibility that NIE have, which allows them to be a more dynamic organization, and they can be reactive. But obviously, they're dealing with electricity, so you know, if you say to somebody, "Look, which do you want? You know, light and warmth, or do you want the toilet working?" Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not. It sounds like there's no plans to make it a semi-state type body. The water industry?
No, there seems to be resistance to that. But the chink of light, and take us back to housing again, our public sector social housing organisation, the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, again, has been state funded to this point. But actually, there is a proposal sitting in Treasury in Westminster at the moment to allow it to borrow on the commercial market.
Okay.
Now, that's huge, because with 90,000 homes in the Housing Executive, all of which the Housing Executive would like to raise the energy efficiency standards of hugely. And they would also like to start building homes again, subject to NI Water, different discussion. But if they can be enabled to borrow commercially, why not NI Water?
Yeah.
You know, the same arguments apply, the same model applies. And it seems strange to us. The housing associations have been borrowing commercially for their whole time. They're 50% state funded for capital build of new homes, and 50% they borrow. And they pay very good, very competitive rates because they're blue chip clients. I don't see why NI Water can't avail of that. We've been doing it for years with social housing. We're going to do it with the state social housing bodies. So there's a chink of light there. I think there's a path to get there. I think there's a nervousness, and I get it. There's a nervousness with politicians about water, and you understand that.
Yeah.
Well, you've been through that pain.
Yeah.
People are anxious about paying for stuff.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is, we don't know. Maybe in the long term, people should be paying for it. That's a political decision. But in the medium term, we can see an opportunity to borrow money where you're increasing your ability to invest, and you're borrowing money and paying it back at very low rates.
Yeah.
That's got to be worth investigating. I don't understand the political argument against that when we already do it for social housing.
Yeah.
There's always a latency in any organisation to keep doing what you're doing. It's easier and it's less risky.
I suppose the length of term of the people that do get into politics is kind of short, and so their short-term views kind of are not the ones that involve this type of a discussion.
We haven't even had an administration that's seen out 4 years yet, never mind a single minister in a single post. So this is our returned administration now. We don't have an election again until 2027. So there's a really good window here of opportunity. If we grasp it quickly, we could start to do something meaningful, and ideally cross-party. And then the nature of the executive in the north is it is a mandatory coalition. So we have 4 of the 5 main parties in that coalition. One of the parties this time stepped outside as opposition, but essentially we have a coalition where everybody has to agree. The budget's divvied up on an agreed basis, and it's never enough for everybody, but everybody agrees we have to do it. I think we could get a cross-party position that would outlive any individual minister from Infrastructure doesn't get delivered in 3, 4, 5 year terms. By the time you get through the business case and the funding and the planning and the delivery, you're seeing out 2 or 3 terms. NI Water's requirements from the utility regulator, that's a 10-year window. We're talking 600 million a year for each of those years. That's assuming we have been putting the money in the pot each year. This year we didn't. So we're already behind. And those costs are looking a bit under inflation as well. So, we need to get the machine going on this very quickly.
Okay, brings me on to my next subject with you, which is really heartwarming, and I'm delighted to hear about it. Your initiatives with attracting young people into the industry of construction. And, we've got people from Canada, 28 countries listening to our podcast. And I think they can take some lessons maybe from what you guys have been doing, because we've got a bit of the Grim Reaper stuff out of the way.
Yeah, this is the upside.
Yeah.
This is so good, because this reflects what we're about this year. As I say, we're 8 years this year, but we really would rather talk about the future of construction than the 80 years and pat ourselves in the back and talk about, old grey men and bow ties. That's not what we're about. We're about attracting the next generation into construction, or indeed people who've not been in construction to this point, but have had a bit of life experience. Let's get those people in the industry. So about 2 years ago, we decided skills was something that was not fixing itself. We do have the Construction Industry Training Board here in the north, which is charged with that and does what it can, but it's, they've limited resources and we support them in what they do, but we recognise there are things aren't within their gift to do. And we realised our members needed help. So we've set up a new company called Construction Futures. And we've actually done this in conjunction with 2 of the main trades unions in the north, Unite and the GMB. Reason for doing that is there's mutual support, really, because we've worked closely with the unions for many years on the health and safety agenda, primarily, and on working conditions and pay. So it's a logical progression to talk about skills. And first thing we did with Construction Futures was appoint one of the global consultancy firms to actually, for the first time, I suppose, capture what we already knew. But that's what consultants do, right? They tell you what you already know, but they put it in a format and they give you something to go to government with. And that's what we did. And we briefed the economy minister with their report, and he was very supportive. So we've set up Construction Futures to plug into government as a self-contained think tank for our specific industry. So we do have a department for the economy here, which does a lot of good work for skills generally. But honest with you, they're much more focused on the fintech, pharma, all of the, I suppose, the more perceived to be more modern industries and more attractive industries, and the ones that young people will be told about in school. Didn't hear construction mentioned. I mean, we had a strategy called 10X. 10X was the skills strategy for Northern Ireland. The word construction is in it once.
Wow.
We weren't even considered. So we thought, right, this isn't good enough. We need to take this into our own hands. So we set up Construction Futures. Fionnuala McKenna heads that up, and Fionnuala is a 10-year served civil engineer herself, but importantly, she was also a secondary school STEM teacher. She understands young people. She's taught young people, but she knows what it's like to be in a business. She's come through the ranks. She's walked the walk. So Fionnuala fully understands that. And we've also recruited as well now a skill engagement officer. This is only the start, but she's now going to be going out full time into schools, into colleges, and trying to, I suppose, explain what construction is. Because I think if you ask most careers teachers, they've got an idea of what construction is because it's what their uncle did or what their grandfather talked about. They have no idea. And also we've nothing to hand over to them. So, a big piece of what we're doing is actually explaining the range of careers in construction that you and I know about, but they don't know about. So they imagine everybody in construction has to go out on a wet day and has to stand in the ditch in the pouring rain for hours. And those are important jobs, and we need more people to do those jobs. And some people love those jobs and some people will never want those jobs. But we have so many careers in construction, literally hundreds of careers in construction that are not understood.
Yeah.
So it's about setting out the range of those. We are going to be producing a single prospectus for Northern Ireland for construction, which will cover every entry point into construction, be that straight from school, be that from university, be that from college, be that as a life experienced person returning to the workforce, and where you can get trained on the various skills that you need to get to where you want to go. So it's a big piece of work. big piece of work. But what we want is a single touch point where a young person, a careers teacher, or a parent can go and actually understand construction, that it's a path, it's a journey. It's not a single job, it's a journey. A lot of people don't end up where they started, but the opportunities are great.
Yeah.
Really need to get that messaging across. One of the things we did last year, the Northern Ireland Careers Teachers Conference, we sponsored that as Construction Futures, and we had guest speakers there from some of the larger construction companies who brought their apprentices with them.
Brilliant.
And they spoke brilliantly. Young people talking with passion about what they do every day,
Brilliant.
why they do it.
Love it.
And bringing
Absolutely
it to life.
love it.
And the teachers loved it. It's the first time we've really properly engaged with them, because the engagement is difficult. Schools have a full curriculum. It's hard to get time with them. So you need to make it easy for them. You need the bite-sized information that they need to convey.
Yeah.
The other thing then is supporting our members to actually open their gates. So literally in March this year, for the first time, there's an Open Doors initiative. This is part of Build UK, which has not been done here before. But what this is our members are registering with this initiative that on a week, which is actually the St. Patrick's Week, they will be opening their building sites for pre-arranged tours by local schools.
Love it.
They'll be coming to the site, having explained to them what it is to be on a construction site, the range of opportunities, and really engage locally. Because I think a lot of schools, a lot of kids, they walk past the hoardings around the site and they have no idea what goes on the other side of it, and they don't care.
Yeah. And
all they're ever told is in the summer holidays, do not go into that site; it's dangerous. So that they just think bad things happen there.
Well, that's very interesting that you should say that now. That I haven't really thought about that before, but there's a perceived behavioural aspect, isn't there? Like, don't go near the site.
Don't go near a building site. That's antisocial behaviour. It's unsafe. You're going to get killed.
Yeah, I never actually thought of it that way, but it's so true. You're damaging the brand of construction by saying that. Now, not with all due respect, from a safety hat.
Yeah,
obviously you're saying it for the right reasons, because we've had trucks backing out of sites and stuff like that.
If that's the only engagement the school has ever had with construction, that's the message that's left with them. Don't go near it.
Yeah.
Isn't that ironic? Because, you drop off your 2 or 3-year-old at nursery school and they're given a sandpit and diggers.
Yeah.
That's the last time they'll ever see a digger in school. That's taken away from them very quickly, and then they're told never to go near a construction site because you'll get killed.
Yeah, or build Lego.
Yes, exactly. we need to be very careful with the messaging, and we need to be much more positive. We need to present ourselves much better.
Be more inclusive.
The thought of me going into primary school and trying to encourage kids to go into construction is laughable. You need to have people going into schools who look like the people you're trying to attract. You need a more diverse and more diverse workforce going in there and saying, look, I'm in construction, look at me. Yeah. So you can be like me. So it's very much about the role models. I mean, we're in the early days with Construction Futures. I mean, you talk about technology. We talked about that earlier on. TikTok. I don't do TikTok, but we put up one particular video on TikTok. It was just one of the young mechanical engineer apprentices talking about his journey. It got 90,000 hits.
Wow.
That blows my mind. If I get a couple of likes on LinkedIn, I think I'm the king, So what on earth? Young people engage in different ways than somebody like me can understand. So, again, we're using a social media influencer to devise our social media policy, because we'll never do it. We have no idea. We're not that age group. We need, don't pretend to know what you don't know about.
Yeah. Like, even our listenership on TikTok is really strong, and it blows my mind. Like, but that's where they're at, and that's where we need to go.
That's where you need to go. Facebook, very quiet. Very quiet. Yeah. X has gone a bit strange. I think we all know that. So, you follow the trends, but you have to interact with people in a way that makes sense to them. But the key thing for me in Construction Futures is, even the name was carefully chosen. You have a future in construction. It's not just about a job. I think there's too much of, if you can't do anything else, do construction. At least you'll be busy and create something.
The other thing I was thinking is, there's no real point in measuring that either, because what are you measuring? The outcome, is that you're talking about it. That's the main outcome, is that you're in an environment of talking about it in a safe space that tells exactly the stories that you're telling, from champions that have said, I was in your seat when I was 5 years of age. Now I'm 25 years of age, and my life has changed, and for the better. Exactly that.
So this year, I've mentioned it a few times, but it's our 80th. So we're having a big dinner at the end of March. And that could have been one of those black tie dinners where all you do is put up photographs of old people and say, how good have we been?
Don't vote me.
Right. Yes, we're doing a little bit of that. But actually half of the evening is going to be given over to the young people. So we have a next generation sponsor who's going to be paying for 30 young people to join us that night. 3 tables of young people coming to a nice event. Yes, we've got comedians and we've got good guest speakers, a guy from Grand Designs and stuff like that. But it's about young people. You know, we need the next generation, and we really needed them yesterday, but we certainly need them today.
I can't even recall many companies coming up with scholarships either for construction companies and stuff like that. It blows my mind that when you start talking about it and how it's a simple but yet very effective model that you put into place. Yeah. Nobody's doing it, Mark. I don't know many countries that are doing it.
It's a very patchwork quilt. And I think that's we're discovering this. I mean, we're trying to coordinate this information for another audience, and we're struggling to pull it all together because it is so diverse. And you'll have pockets of fabulous experience. There's some companies out there doing academies and bringing in young people and doing all the right things. There's some people out there can't go near it. They don't understand it. They don't want to do it. And, there's bad practice out there as well. It'd be silly to say otherwise. There are occasions young people come into our industry and they don't have a good experience. And that's terrible. And, let's be honest about it. Some of those are female. Mm-hmm. They don't always have the best experience because some sites are not set up to receive them. Yeah. And, it's very simple adjustments on occasions. And we do start to see them now on sites, but it's by no means on every site. And if we don't make ourselves ready to receive these people and they don't have a good experience, worse than that we didn't get them, they go off and tell someone else they had a bad experience.
That's right, yeah.
And you've lost 2 or 3 people.
That's right. You can knock out a generation.
You can. So we're trying to work on that very closely. Again, a lot of the companies are really switched on to that. But it is that information piece. It's sharing that with the next tier and making sure they understand what we require. And if they need help to do it, frankly, we need to help them to do it because it helps us. Yeah. But I do see change out there. When you go out on the sites now, I see a lot of arrangements, that everybody's catered for. And, we would never actually hear of anybody having a problem on site. And that wouldn't have been the case, in the past. Organizations like ours would regularly get complaints about lewd behavior or people on sites not behaving. And that just doesn't seem to happen anymore. No. That would be extremely unusual. So I think we're making progress. Culturally, we're making progress, but culture takes time, doesn't it?
It does take time. But some of the episodes we've had here, we've also talked about cross-transferable skills. So I remember talking to somebody, I think it was in Canada, and they were bringing in teachers and attracting teachers into the construction industry because obviously they're teachers that can, bring the behavioural aspect of getting messages across the right way and putting in the learning tools and skills. And they know nothing about construction, but they were going to get paid more than what a teacher's salary would be. And they actually had this value that, this particular construction company had picked out and said, look, let's target teachers to bring in, these people. And they've made themselves up into project managers then from being a teacher because the company was basically saying they don't need to have all the technical aspects of project management. We can teach them that. But
that's right. It's the aptitude and the skill set. I mean, same applies, all categories of IT as well. I think there's a really rich hunting ground to be done there because, there's good careers in IT, but an awful lot of careers stall at a very low level. They look quite attractive to a young person coming out of school, coming out of college, because it looks like a good entry level job, but it doesn't progress very far for most people. Yeah. And they can get very frustrated, and yet they will have a good skill set there. And there are, as so many digital careers that we can offer them as well, or project management careers. And, another source is ex-military,
100%,
ex-police, ex-guards.
Yeah, firemen, all that.
Yeah. Logical, disciplined mindsets with some skills and people management and so on. So, we're excited to get young people in the industry, but particularly if we were ever to get the funding we do ask for the retrofit program for housing, which would be a massive demand on the industry. We're not going to upskill quickly enough with young people. We need people to divert into our industry from other places. We think that could be done if the money's right. Anything can be done. It's a challenge always get, actually. And sometimes I think from politicians, it's an excuse not to invest. Oh, we're worried the industry won't have the capacity to deliver this, so we're going to spend. Well, try us.
Yeah.
Give it a go. Would rather be unable to spend your money than that you don't even try to spend the money. I think we'll rise to the occasion. We've done it before. We'll do it again.
Yeah. And so in terms of the future, Mark, like your next couple of years, I suppose your next 3 years, is its focus on, trying to deliver for your members, trying to raise the awareness for construction as a career, trying to steady the boat, try to get more investment. Is that all of that and the rest?
It's all of that, and literally as we're speaking now, we've just released our survey results. We do a survey twice a year. So we've just released our survey result for the second half of last year. And it is a bit grim reaperish, if I'm honest. For the first time, we have a larger number whose turnover has gone down. That's unusual. Turnover generally increases even just because of inflation. Some turnovers have gone down.
Okay.
Profit margins have gone down. And one of our key questions of our members is, are you working at full capacity? And that question was down in the 60s this time, where normally it's up in the 90s.
Wow.
People are starting to feel a little bit under capacity, and pricing's not great, and inflation is probably going to emerge again. We've had, as you know, the new Labour government. There have been a few increases which are going to start to rear their head in terms of employer national insurance. People are anticipating those increases already in material costs and so on. So yes, steady the boat. This is going to be a difficult 2-3 years. I think everybody recognises that the projections for economic growth across the UK are not amazing, but the opportunities in the Republic remain good. Those companies in Northern Ireland headquarters who work in GB still do good, profitable work.
Yeah.
And yes, we have an ageing workforce, which means people are dropping out all the time. So we will still have a skills requirement. I don't want to talk people out of a career in construction. I think we definitely need new people in construction every day.
Yeah.
The largest local job agency did a survey of 2024 and found construction was the second most in-demand sector in the entire economy.
Okay.
I hate to say it because we all hate to say it. QSs were the highest amongst those. We all hate to say that, don't we? To be honest. But anyway,
okay, a little bit about you, Mark. Just a couple of curveball questions at you. So, knowing what you know now, what would you do different? And it doesn't have to be in business or in your current job.
Do you know what? I think it's a Northern Ireland thing. Particularly, you'll tell me it's more than Northern Ireland thing, but I do think there's an inherent thing in Northern Ireland to just don't push yourself. Don't get noticed. Don't have a strong opinion on something because you might upset somebody. And that's all wrong. And I actually had a French teacher at school who said, always have an opinion. No matter what it is, have an opinion on it. Don't sit in the fence. And, if I had my time again, I'm reasonably outspoken now. I would probably have started being outspoken sooner.
Okay.
That's the truth. I think that's just maybe slightly the generation I come from where, you left school. You go to uni, you do the degree, you get a good job, and you just keep your head down, work hard, and you'll get your nonsense.
Yeah.
If that's the sort of life you want, that's fine. But, if you want to do something that you get real enjoyment out of, I think you have to just get out of that comfort zone a bit. I mean, I've got out of my comfort zone so often I don't know what comfortable is anymore. It's just the first time you do something, it scares the wits out of you, and then after a while, it becomes the norm again. And I think there's a natural. I just think there's a natural thing in a lot of us not to be too pushy, not to get too noticed.
Yeah.
That kind of will hold you back, and you see that when you're older. You don't see it so much when you're younger.
100%.
I think this generation have solved that problem. By the way, I think they're.
I agree. 100%.
With their talents and their skills, and I commend them for that. And I think it's great when you're interviewing somebody that they actually have the confidence to tell you what they're good at. You'll find that if they are, of course, but. That's great to see.
It's a great piece of advice. Something of interest about you, Mark, that not many people would know or wouldn't point the finger and say, I never knew that about Mark.
Crikey. Where would you go with that?
No, yeah.
Where would you go with that?
We don't want to put you, we don't want any sort of lawsuits or a divorce or anything.
I'm not sure what I would tell you about that. I mean, I have a madly diverse taste in music, which goes everywhere from literally A to Z. And I've got a bit of a Swedish heavy metal. Is that a problem? Yeah, yeah. There's a bit of that. There's a bit of. I do have a strong Nordic thing. I love the Nordic countries.
Yeah.
I do love that culture and enjoy the time there. So yeah, all things Nordic interest me.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I used to drive the Saabs, the old Swedish cars back
Yeah,
in the day.
great car.
I loved all that, and I actually stupidly got into the space of having an old classic one for a number of years until I realised, yeah, a bit like being an architect who can't draw. I'm a car owner who doesn't know how to fix anything. So it was just sitting under a tarpaulin in the driveway, slowly returning to nature. And I thought, this isn't fair. So I sent it on to somebody who actually knew what they were doing. And I think it's back on the road again. So
yeah, well, I have to say we switched to a Volvo a couple of years ago, and it was probably it was a brilliant move, I have to say.
Yeah.
A problem just only this morning with the camera. Well, the reversing camera. Well, first world problems, by the way. Reversing camera not work.
Absolutely. If you had a heater in your car back in the day, you were happy. Now you've got a reversing camera problem.
You have a reversing camera, but I'm able to WhatsApp somebody in Volvo, and they were back within 5 seconds. So
wow.
do this. I was like, Jesus, this is brilliant. A favorite book or movie, or both?
Yeah. Do you know what? This will sound very, very sad, but I do like my sci-fi.
Okay.
And I've totally immersed myself in the world of Dune in the last couple of movies of Dune.
Yeah.
And I actually dragged myself through the rather weighty books as well. But no, I've enjoyed that. I do enjoy that. You know, I think everybody in business is meant to say when they're reading a book, it's a productivity book or a get rich quick book or a leadership book. And yeah, there's a time for that. It's not when you're on holiday. I go on holiday, I read properly good fiction. I love historically based fiction things like Robert Harris. He always writes a good book, but there's kernels of truth in it that's based in an historical context, but it's always a bit twisty. So no, I do enjoy a read and just getting off the agenda for a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's 100%.
I take my business development in bite-sized chunks. There's a couple of very good apps which throw some thought pieces at you a couple of times a day, and it's only a 5-minute read, and you digest that.
Yeah, that's right. I was actually thinking about the same thing recently because some of the books I like and I have them listed, but I never get to read them. Don't have time.
Shelves fill them because I always buy them, but I never read them. So this actually breaks them down in chunks for you and take away the best bits. So I love that.
That's a great idea. Yeah, because I only said that to my wife over Christmas. I know there's an app out there that shortens the key points of the book and stuff like that. Mark, you've been an amazing guest. I have to commend you. Yeah, 100%. I really enjoyed today's show. Like, we're well over an hour now. We're just over an hour, and we could go another hour, 100%. And it's a credit to you and the organisation, and from a CEO point of view, the initiative on the kids and where you're going with that. We'd love maybe come back in the future.
Absolutely. No, listen, I'd love to give you an update on that, see how we're progressing.
100%. So listen, thanks very much, and we'll keep in touch.
Brilliant. Gavin, enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.